Let's do what we usually do, get started with a temperature check. And we have two big topics on the agenda today. So without further ado, let's get started. Temperature check on the community, yourself, your working group, and I'll pass to Eduardo to kick us off.
Thank you, Tam. Let me put the camera on. So this has been a very interesting week. I feel there have been so many conversations in different spaces, and it's I don't know if this is the right word to express it, but I feel like we are reaching this point of maturity where conflict is interesting, and conflict generates conversations that are interesting, and we can learn from that. And I feel that's something that I'm just expecting from a little bit afar, but I still think it's positive for us. Nate, you have your mic on, just letting you know. And
very sorry.
No worries. And besides that, I feel the working groups, I feel like a little bit warm on that sense, because of all the stuff. I'm really happy that Transparency passed their proposal on that sense. So yeah, with that being said, I will pass to Mitch.
Thanks. Temperature check. Oh, good one. Well, lots of interesting discussions in Sampo, and Gideon's been reaching out to me like where we can start generating revenue, and that's gotten me going down a lot of interesting paths, how that could work. But apart from that, I feel like the reward system is going well. I think like we're drafting proposals and looking at getting it out there into the other ecosystem. I'm really grateful to Zep for making the post to like improve the accuracy of the system itself. Proposal inverter, we managed to fix a lot of gaps in the UX and just like the flow, so I feel like that's going well as well. So I would say I'm feeling warm. I'll say that. Maybe like a comfortable like 15 degrees. And I'll pass it to Mert.
Thank you, Mitch. So I'm actually feeling very warm these days because firstly, like on Monday, I joined the UX presentation of the Concilius library. I think when this will be finished, like our community will really like it. So we've just talked like what we've promised in the proposal and what now we are doing is actually way exceeding our promise. So I'm super happy about it. Like maybe in one Wednesday, I would love to see other stewards to check the progress. I think it's going like super good. Like we've created very good front end and even great pathway for revenue generation, Web3 integration, wallet connection, etc. So I'm super happy about it. Regarding the proposal inverter, as Mitch said, everything is going very good. Actually, backend is like now starting well, and UX design has been going very well. So super hot week for me. And also, just one last thing. I'm really happy to see praise proposal in Gnosis. Like I was super happy to see our services are like getting spreaded. I would like to pass it on Olivia.
I feel warm. Also, I'm excited to go on vacation. I think we'll be, I think I'll come back way more relaxed and being able to do more things. And there was something I commented on Gideon's document of message to TC holders that I wanted to share, that I feel like the examples we're making more visible in the TC aren't necessarily building capacity for token engineering expertise for this Schelling point. And I think we should highlight more the TE introductions that happened in collaboration with TE Academy, the DAO Reward System Research Group that was a partnership between TE Academy, TC, Common Stack, Gnosis, Ocean, Near, supported by Boson Protocol, the TE spotlights we had in our community calls for the last year, the Solidity course that happened in TC Labs, the bot army that was being formed in the labs would be a great example. It died for lack of engagement, and it's a health signal. The development of Praise and RAD based on TC's input data, even being a CS product, the work happening in Omega and the exploration of social ethics.
Sorry to interrupt. It's probably something that's worth talking about, but for the check-in, maybe it's too much detail.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention how I think when I was writing this list, I thought like, wow, there's actually a lot of things we did for token engineering that haven't been so highlighted, and that we've been highlighting a lot the operations and the working groups, but there's a whole bunch of things that we should be very proud of that could be more like out there in communications, and I think this would help us a lot. I'll pass to Zapti.
Thanks, Libby. Yeah, I'm actually happy the transparency proposal passed. It's actually pretty quick. And I'm also very excited, like when there is these hot topics, I feel like it's when, I don't know, it's when I have the most fun and I feel like learn the most. So yeah, I'm really happy to having all those challenges and go through them. I think it's fun. I'll pass it to Nate.
Thanks, Zepti. Temperature check. I think everything is really, it's warm, it's hot. I think we should change it to weather check, though, because it gives you a lot more descriptors. I think we're doing really good. I think there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot of really great conversations, and really evaluating the direction that we're heading. So really good to see. And I'll pass it to Wonka.
Yeah, I am also excited for all the change that we are facing and that we are all like experiencing in the working groups. I really admire and wanted to thank the stewards that made it possible for other stewards to receive the compensation during May. I think it was really meaningful to do that. And it shows how intrinsically motivated the people is here. Yeah, and I'll pass to Edu.
I already
Edu
went.
went already, but Gideon hadn't.
Yeah, I'll go. My internet is down at my house, so on the phone right now. I would say that I'm warm. It's I just got off a call with Trent McConaughey, and he it was a really good call, and he is offering the reminder that this is really a startup, and so he it was kind of like a call that's like one of those. It's like a wake up call of like, yeah, this is, things could get tough. And he was kind of like helping me to just remind myself even of like my old experience, like back in business, but also like even in the nonprofit. It's like, yeah, these are kind of tough times, that we could be going into some difficult times, and we can already kind of see it in some of the conversations. Some of the conversations are getting a little bit spicy, but I think that this is me personally now, is like these kinds of it's like the analogy of like a diamond. The pressure sometimes is hard while it's happening, but in the end it leads to something really essential and beautiful. So that's kind of how I feel right now. Feels like we're going into some maybe difficult times, and that in the end they'll be good for us. Who has not gone? Let's see. I'll pass to Lauren.
Thanks, Gideon. I'm feeling warm. It's really nice to hear everybody check-ins. I mean, Yeah, I really enjoyed like Livia's recount of all the things that we've been doing and contributing to token engineering. Actually, is like really puts things in perspective, and I think also is like an interesting like how do we look at this thing from a comms perspective, and how do we kind of like also like share more what we've been doing. But yeah, personally and within the TC, I'm feeling also warm. I had a really good call with Tam over the weekend that kind of just was like reassessing kind of like my place as a steward and like the stewards as a whole. And I'm just kind of like in the the feeling of transformation. I mean, if it's like the weather is fall because it feels like it's the season of change. Yeah. And but yeah, other than that, I'm also feeling like just hot under the weight of pressure of so many things, I feel like. And it's getting to be like summer and there's all these conference seasons coming up, and I feel like people are going to be taking off, and it's like, but there's still so much to be done, and it's really hard to like balance and maintain like all of the pushing forward with all of the like easing back. And yeah, I'm not sure who hasn't gone, so I'll just pass it back to you, Tim.
Chewy hasn't gone yet.
Thank you, Tam. I really like Nate's idea of changing this to like weather. Can't remember the word, but like forecast. Yeah, I think it's like very windy and cloudy. Personally, is like, yeah, just like making me nervous. Like I don't know if there's a storm coming or it's just like the wind passing. Like I don't know. It's I'm also thrilled by it. I'm thrilled by the many solutions by Sampo that Sampo is coming up with, and also the amazing capacity that we have to adapt to different circumstances. It's just the will to have these conversations makes like a world of a difference. But yeah, just just wondering how things are gonna be turning out. So yeah, a little bit confused, I guess. I'll pass it back to you, Tam. I think everybody went, or
Almost.
or Griff. Yeah, go ahead, Griff.
Yep. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, it's pretty humid, I'd say. Maybe a little bit of a draft. Pretty hot. And yeah, I love to see, like, even just hearing that Gideon had a conversation with Trent, and in more one-on-one interactions with our large token holders is really powerful, really nice. Also, good to see that we can pass proposals kind of quickly when they're small and agile with transparency. And yeah, and I think we're really headed in the right direction. And I really loved all the list that Livia said. And I feel like we really do need to, promote these things, these things that we've done, and maybe even get some kind of deck together or something where we can like highlight them, and it would be really powerful. But yeah, and kind of also piggybacking off of what Lauren said, I am like also pretty removed this month and this summer, so I'm excited to see how everything evolves so quickly when I'm not even around. That's really nice. I'll pass it back to you, Tim.
And Epanun, welcome to the Stewards Weekly. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you're very welcome. You're welcome here. Welcome to just listen in if you'd prefer. Okay. I think I'm saying your name right. Epanun. If you change your mind, you can unmute, and that'll be a signal that you want to say hi. And then I guess lastly, me, there's 3 sprints ago, I felt so much panic about our financial future. And then Sampo was born, and Gideon sort of started to take a lot of the burden of compiling and sense making and decision making and strategy. And so my panic started to wane. But when a pebble falls in a lake, there's like these ripples outwards, and I feel like those ripples have gone outwards, and now there's some real high concern coming in from other areas too. But it feels like the core stewards have sort of gone through this already, like felt that urgency and panic, and sort of see momentum is building to say, to alleviate some of those pressures. And overall, I think it's amazing that we're getting so much great feedback from really from people who care most about TEC's future, I guess is the best way to say it. I really like the chance to think about and evolve the Stewards working group as well. I'll share just really, I'd love to hear some advice process from the Stewards on where the thinking is for that right now. And also, I really, really appreciated the Stewards who didn't ask for compensation because they felt they weren't active. And I think it's worth going back to thinking about how, well, the evolution of the Stewards working group and being very active will come in together again. But I thought Lauren, Nate, Griff, Gideon, you guys set a really good model. And Vi also being aware of his limited time that he was able to participate in the TEC this month. Okay, so we're going to hop right into the role stewards play in limiting spending. The Sampo Season 1 funding proposal has just so much in it. And one of the main points that Gideon made in here was to separate this idea of limiting spending and how the stewards can help the community do that, whether we should even do that, whether it's more up to the community token holders, to decide if we, how and when we stop by signaling their intention to stop by abstain. I think a lot of people already had a chance to respond to this. A steward's proposal on a new spending policy that applies to all proposals. I felt a little struggle with this because as a decentralized organization, this sounds very centralized to me. So I had a hard time figuring out what our next action should be in regards to this. So I'd love to open the floor to hear others' perspectives. Is this something the stewards should take on to either propose guidelines to anyone that wants to propose this funding, or to maybe encourage abstain votes? Or it's like, how do you think the stewards should be involved in encouraging not spending, or should we at all? Zep, you're so out of the gate.
I actually think, like, I'm making policies and rules. This is not the way we want to approach it. Like, if the stewards have to come with an idea, it should be like a suggestion to change conviction voting and make it harder to pass, like if that's what we want. And yeah, but like whatever we end up deciding as a community should be in the code and not in a forum post.
Okay, maybe we can pass it on since we still have 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, I'll pass it to Juan.
I actually think that boundaries are good, and I've heard that in other organizations there's like a maximum amount of hours that a contributor can claim, and yeah, maybe having those boundaries can help the proposers to have some guiding principles when designing the proposals, and we can avoid having to talk about this as a weird thing when people already wrote a proposal. I'll pass it to Libby.
I just want to say something. I think that this policy would extend beyond contributors, but would also be for funding requests writ large. So not necessarily just working group funding, but any funding proposal. But you definitely address one, which is the working groups and how roles are compensated, or how contributors are compensated.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Wanda.
I think I agree with Zeptimus that enforcing this culturally would be very energy, time consuming. And I mean, what would this look like if there was a proposal that had was requesting a larger amount? We would have to send a Celeste request to cancel the proposal. Like, we would challenge each proposal that would pass over that limit. That would be one way. It does feel a little extreme. Maybe I like what Griff said, that it feels like there is a natural incentive for submitting smaller proposals because transparency had a smaller amount and just passed so quick. So I think when people understand that this is the behavior of conviction voting, we wouldn't have to do anything like that. I'll pass to Mitch.
Yeah, I'm with Zep on this one. Kind of for the same reasons outlined above. It's like we should rely on the CV settings in there, and I think we just add like a lot of overhead by like defining this policy and then kind of like enforcing it on people. I think if we're looking at ways of controlling spending, I think there might be a better way to go about it than like writing a policy. I'll pass it to Chewy since I see his head nodding.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. I really echo this idea about depending on the infrastructure that we already have to set these boundaries. I think that maybe like an approach that no one else is taking, and I mean I get why, and it's because pretty much like no one knows how long this like bear market is going to last for. So I feel that maybe something that no one else is trying at this point is whatever measure that we take, just try to like anchor just a review date. So if we set, if we collectively decide that setting boundaries with conviction voting is the best way to go, set a review date for those boundaries. So maybe we can have like a call that is very like open and try to be like as inclusive as possible and openly discuss in 3 months, like, should we keep these settings or should we maybe consider losing them a little bit more? But just like establishing periods where we review our own decisions so that it doesn't like drag and like all of a sudden we are under different circumstances than why originally we took that decision. Because I feel that could like just domino into an effect of a centralized decision that the stewards made, and then it ended up affecting the whole community and it never got the chance to, you know, like get back on its feet as it should work. So yeah, just like review dates for whatever we decide on would be my suggestion. I'll pass it to Nate.
Thanks, Tree. Yeah, I would say structurally everything is great. I think the voting system works. I think that the way we have things set up, it makes sense. The beautiful thing about being tokenized is that we have a lot of voting power in this room, and that if we want to create policies, that we should be very upfront about it. I do think we should have some type of framework or guidelines that should be developed for people who are proposing to understand that this is what it takes for your best chances of succeeding in a vote is. And I think we can all come to consensus on like what makes a good proposal and what doesn't. And I don't think we've been very clear about that in the past. And I think that's something that we should focus on doing. But outside of that, yeah, I think that, you know, we all have the power to vote on what passes and what doesn't. And we have, when it comes to using Celeste, I think it's kind of tricky. I think most of this is trying to mitigate conflict. So managing expectations when people do propose and saying, hey, you know, here's a guideline and you don't follow that guideline and that makes sense for them. And it's not just like a coalition of stewards who are saying, no, we're not going to pass this. So I think having those guidelines are really important. But outside of that, everything's good. I'll pass it to Edu.
So, yeah, I'm like it. I agree with Mitch and Septi. I do not like this idea of putting this. One thing is putting boundaries, and one thing is limiting, and this feels limiting rather than boundary. And so I feel like all the effort that will go into putting this policy in place could be redirected to other efforts and will be probably more productive. So yeah, I'm not too excited for that. Great. Maybe it's the last one, or Lauren?
I'll take it. I'm a firm believer that we have a structure in place to make these decisions, so we should use it and live by it. And if we want to change conviction voting parameters, that's what we should do. And I'll throw it over to Lauren.
I kind of feel the same as everyone else. I don't have anything like major bonus to add to that. I think that also though that the challenging proposals in the garden is it doesn't have to go Celeste right away. It's actually like you can be challenged and then the people can talk about it and take it down. So it doesn't have to be this like crazy escalated thing in order to challenge a proposal, and that could be something that's maybe communicated better to people if there's like large funding proposals that we disagree with. Am I last?
We haven't heard from Gideon yet.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about this a lot. I have a slightly different perspective, I guess I'll bring, which is like, well, this is a commons, and commons do require some level of coordination, and we have some good mechanisms for coordination. That's true. But I think that, this is all relatively new. And so, I'm going to channel something that Angela said, which is that, there may be some vectors for vulnerability that we just haven't experienced yet. And so we're learning how to deal with these things. So one that she was citing is that it may be that in 6 months from now, we have like some really cool, powerful ideas for services that we would love to just invest heavily in. But that if we drain ourselves, between now and then, our opportunity to invest in those things gets smaller. Sure, maybe we can raise some money between now and then, but I think that that is a real issue. I still believe that is an issue. Like, we are a startup in the sense that we got some initial money in, and the question is, how do we're in a process of trying to figure out how we build an engine that can bring in more money over time in a sustainable way. And there's some real challenges I think we're going to face between now and when that engine is humming. And so I guess my question to the group is, well, I'll say I don't believe in having some kind of policy that's like, hey, these kinds of things shall pass, these shall not pass. I think that really goes counter to the culture. But I do think it's worth this group being, the coordinators of the commons in terms of like having conversations about what we really do believe are essential services as we are trying to keep the lights on and keep this thing running until we reach a point where we can until we can earn money. And so that doesn't have to, this can be a cultural conversation, right? Where we start to kind of like congeal on like, oh, these kinds of things really are essential. If we shut these kinds of things down over the next 6 months, wow, we're really going to hurt. I'm not even going to give examples because I think that's for all of us to talk about. But I think that there are differences in the kinds of things that are happening across this community right now. And some definitely are essential. If we shut them off, we will hurt ourselves over the long run. And there's some that are not so essential. And so those are the kinds of conversations I think would be good to have at the stewards level. And not formalize it as a policy, but have those be things that then inform people's voting in conviction voting as individual decisions. Okay. I'll pass it back. Tam, I'll pass it to you.
Sure. Mert hasn't had a chance to talk yet.
Yeah, I'll just go quickly over, like, I'm aligned with most of the thoughts has been speed talk, like I think we can rely on the mechanisms we have. Like I think the large amount of token holders are in consensus that we need to lower the spending. So first of all, I think culturally, I feel like the proposals will be leaner, and more of them we can always abstain and propose to change conviction voting settings. So I don't think we should like implement some other extra policies. So that's what I believe. Like by the infrastructure, I think it can be solved easily. I think the bigger problem is how to find more funds rather than how to restrict them.
And welcome, Bear and Craig. You hopped in to a really good discussion. I just want to offer you the opportunity to share your thoughts. Bear, if you have any thoughts about this is from the Sampo thread on the forum, if you're up to date on it, and I think you are, and the Steward's proposal of a new spending policy that applies to all proposals. We're sharing our thoughts about that if you want to take a minute and share your thoughts. Perspective, ideas.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, so it's a really interesting topic. I agree that I don't think policies are the right answer for this. But I also really share what Gideon said about this being like a startup. And as a startup, I think it's really important that all the work we do is really aligned to the vision and the mission we want to deliver. Talking about that is like that engine that Gideon was also talking about. That engine that is going to move us forward, that in this case I would say are the products, the services, the token utility that we want to provide. But the reality is that those things are still not ready, are still like in process to be done. So I think it's really important that we plan and that we coordinate the resources that we have, and that we are really thoughtful and have a strategy on how are we gonna do our spending. And I think one of the ways that could be done, it's budgeting. I think Griff once, I think he suggested that, and I think it's great because I think we would need to be more aligning to, based on our actual financial situation, be able to create budgets for the different categories of spending that the TEC has. That, for what I can see by now, is more like internal expenses, like operational expenses within the working groups, and also kind of like funding external projects from the common pool. So I think based on that situation, based on the common pool balance, we need to plan and set, different scenarios that could happen. So yeah, I would leave it there. I'll pass it to Craig if he wants to say something.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'll abstain, but what I've been able to listen to is interesting. But yeah, I'm listening. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Craig. And Epa Nunn. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself yet, but you're welcome to if you want to unmute and say hi. You're also welcome to not. Gideon, I'm not sure if you know that your mute isn't on, and you're sort of blinking now and again. Cool. Okay, and then I guess I'll share my thoughts too. So I know that. So I have some. I'll just try to throw it all at the same time. So I agree. I think it's very hard for us to say we're a decentralized organization, but we're going to have a centralized group decide on restrictions for spending. So I really also feel pretty strong about the mechanisms that we're using conviction voting, and that it's actually the token holders that get to decide what we spend and what we don't spend on, rather a group of people, even if the group of people is stewards. That said, I think that there's something really important about what it is we're spending on. And I'm hesitant. I don't buy into the answer that proposals getting leaner and being smaller is particularly helpful if we're still spending on the wrong things. I think that a lean proposal spent on something that doesn't immediately help the TEC become more sustainable is still the wrong thing to spend on. So I feel that we can, like, something that we could do is make the proposal template more like create a part of the template where we can actually have direct value to the TEC. How can this help the TEC meet some of our goals? The capacity building that Gideon has outlined, have that become part of the proposal so that the token holders can see the direct impact to the TEC in the proposal itself that they're voting on. So I feel like that's probably one approach for maintaining this token holders decide, but also focusing on allowing them to understand the direct impact to the TEC. That's my thought. I can never take my own notes. Okay, shoot. I hope we don't use that one.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
I think that's a good idea. We could have a cultural proposal that, I don't know, someone could own it and have a draft of, like, what are the 3 key things that we want to achieve in this semester, let's say, or in the next 3 months. And then we submit that to Snapshot. And if that passes, then only proposals that are aligned with those goals could pass on conviction voting. So that would be kind of a policy, but something not about how much the proposal is asking, but more what is the direction the impact is having in the TEC. And then it could be more of a collaborative process, not only with the stewards, but going to Snapshot, having the participation of the whole community. This can probably become a better idea, but I just thought now because you said it.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe Hi Vi, you jumped into maybe the mid of this call. So I don't know if you want to share any thoughts that you have. A minute of, we're speaking about the Sampo thread on the forum and all of the replies and the idea of stewards proposing spending policy to apply to all proposals. If there's something you'd like to share, the floor is yours.
Nothing in particular at the moment.
All right. Cool. Then may I just ask, is there anything that anybody else wants to say about this and or anything else that came up? Because there was some really, we'll have the Sampo working group this evening. I know Angela is going to try to be there. I think even though it's late in Europe, I'll try to be there as well. I feel like a lot of us will probably try to be there tonight. Is there anything anybody else wants to raise about this that we won't go over in Sampo before we move on to the next topic? Okay. All right, cool. So just to recap, I have the sense that overall there is not a support for creating a steward's proposal for a spending policy that applies to all proposal, and that there is some support for either changing conviction voting or possibly having a community signal about the kinds of proposals that we want to pass and or having proposals specify if there is any direct value that they will have for the TEC. Does that sound like the right recap? Cool. Okay, so let's move on with our last 20 minutes. So 2 things that I've been thinking about a lot this sprint is the evolving stewardship. we've this group was created at the end of 2020, maybe the very beginning of 2021, and now we have 15 stewards, 13 working groups if we include the Writers Guild and the TE governance. And some of the main criticism, so most importantly, the Stewards Working Group proposal didn't pass, about 40K, 42, 48. And there at the same time has been a lot of conversation about TEC spending. So we meet at the crossroads of creating a new Stewards Working Group proposal and taking this opportunity to actually think about stewardship. I think this first iteration, so we were able to actually support 4 months of stewardship with the first proposal, taught us a few things, a lot of things. If we go back to the 3 criteria for stewards, it's active and present, servant leader, in the know. And I think some of our stewards have really struggled with the active and present part. And maybe it's not something that works, that all stewards can be active and present. And I started thinking about something more like having very active stewards. So the steward role would mean you're in the TEC every day. You're on Discord. You're really, really responsive. And you're a person who's, I'd say, who's half-time or full-time in the TEC. And then there's this idea of the TEC council. And the counselors would actually be, or advisors, would act more like the advisory board of an organization. And advisory boards usually don't receive compensation. They're called upon to share their perspectives and their ideas. And this idea that we could have a councilship where the commitment was, twice a month in the council. So people who are don't have the capacity to maintain the active and present part as a steward, but really have a lot of care and consideration for the TEC, really want it to be successful, have a lot of outside perspective that they can bring in as well. And so those were the first 2 things I'd love to get some feedback on. And then, I think that there's, for our current stewardship, there's 15 of us. I think some of us might actually choose to be off-boarded because we're not as active in the TEC. Some of us might choose to remain stewards, meaning very active in the TEC. And then some, I think, would rather be in this council. It doesn't mean you only go to 2 meetings per month, the council meetings, but it opens up the council so that people like Trent or Angela or Zargam can actually these people can become counselors of the TEC, advisors of the TEC, without having to become a steward and have a high demand on time. So that's my current thinking right now, that we would have stewards and council be different. Some of the stewards, and then the second thing is maybe more controversial. Given the discussion around focusing our spending on sorry, Mitch, you're unmuted. Given the discussions around limiting spending, I want to propose the idea of the Stewards Working Group not requesting funding for June, July, and August, which would mean stewards wouldn't be compensated. I should also say the role for Working Group Coordination Lead, I think, would be pushed to the working groups themselves, so wouldn't be funded in the Stewards Working Group anymore. So maybe that's a lot. So there's these basically 4 things I'd love to get some perspective on. And we have 15 minutes. So rather than timing everyone and passing around, maybe do we have anyone who's strong, really wants to share their perspective on this, has some thoughts around this already?
Yeah, that's why I unmuted and then I started typing. I agree that I think a lot of stewards will offboard when you just kind of ask them hey, do you think you're meeting the requirements? But in terms of like nominating counselors, I'm like, what's the point? Like, if people have something to say, like, don't we have channels where people can give us this advice? Like, it sounds like we're like creating the system where like we value these people, their opinions more than other ones, or like only like creating a special category where like their advice or their feedback is more important than other ones. But I mean, we kind of like, we already intuitively know like who is going to give us good advice, and I don't know, it might seem like a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? More work than necessary to like create this new entity called counselors, when like the people who, I think we should have channels already that people who are giving us advice can give it to us.
Can I just respond? Because I also think that there will be a lot of stewards offboarding themselves. The thing that I feel like these 15 stewards actually have like a lot of great perspective. And let's say we actually only need 4 or 5 stewards and we don't need 15. I wouldn't want to lose the collective intelligence of the stewardship. So the reason for having something more formal than just, hey, if you want, you can come and talk on our Discord, would be to have a structure for them to be included in part of the processes of advice and counseling in the Stewards Working Group. I just wanted to share that. Okay. Gideon, you unmuted too?
Yeah. So, okay, I guess the simplest way to describe what I'm feeling these days is that we're kind of a hybrid organization. We are part startup and part community. And so what does that mean? So the part startup is, we have an economic layer. We have an economic engine, really. We're a microeconomy that needs to make money. And in that sense, we kind of need to run like a business, not exactly a business, but that part of us, I think, needs to be very careful with salaries and making ongoing commitments of salaries, because that burns through money really quickly. And I think the community part, is more like a community organizing type model, and maybe even nonprofit type model. But it's, where we should be trying to find ways to encourage volunteerism, right? Encourage people to feel comfortable and want to contribute to this mission. And that there are some powerful models for that. The community organizer model is really good at doing that, at like organizing people and their ability to contribute. So I like this model that you're talking about, Tam, because I think it kind of embraces that, right? It's like winnowing it down to a small number of people who would be getting, and being very careful about who we're giving like serious salaries to in the stewardship role, and then figuring out a way to plug in more kind of volunteer community organizing type contributions.
I will say I like this idea. I think we should put down on the working group coordination leads. Then the part of I can see Mitch's opinion coming as a second thought regarding having people believing that some people opinions matter than others. But at the same time, I will challenge that, saying that we already have a subject matter expert figure as a role in the Discord. So that kind of exists already, and no one has gotten feel offended or anything by that. Because I feel like people see it more of a something that it's easier to point out to go to, like if that's a subject matter expert on something, then I can consult you on that. So maybe it could be about having the council not focus, but identify, we want someone from the economics, we want someone from governance, we want someone from so it could be a very interesting token economic system in the perceived as a council. In that sense, we will have different areas that could be that are necessary for us, and that will sort of serve as a replacement of the subject matter expert that actually are not having any result at the moment. And then the second thing, that it's the second time I listen to it, and it brings certain unease to me. It's the concept of being a part startup, we are commons. I mean, that's it. We will have to find our way to work and our way to evolve. But just labeling ourselves as a startup, I feel is a dangerous kind of thing, because then we will bring things from the legacy system that I don't feel comfortable with, and that many of us who came from the corporate world sort of avoid. So yeah, I'm not comfortable with the definition of being a part of startup. I think we will have to find our own way to build our economy, but not a startup one. It's not the one that I will like sort of support. That's it. Back to you, Tam.
I actually. Oh, go ahead, Nate.
Okay. Yeah. So I agree with Edu on the startup thing. I think language is really important. I think we could mess up a lot with that term. However, I think stewardship is extremely important. I think it's an important role that just simply for the sake of maintaining institutional knowledge. I think that is the core feature that stewards hold. For newcomers to come in, to talk to people that have been around for a long time, to learn from them, to understand how things work, knowing who to talk to, I think it's very, very important. I think that compensating stewards, I disagree with the entire paid role model that we have. I think we should explore different models, and I do think they exist. That goes for all working groups, not just the stewards. I think the stewards themselves can be compensated through both. Well, the title itself is kind of this intrinsic motivation where you're kind of a leader within this major project, which is really a nice privilege to have and something to put down as an accomplishment. And also, we could compensate stewards through the reward system in some way, maybe amplifying their praise that they receive. And I think there are multiple solutions that we can explore, but I do think the act of stewardship is very, very important in terms of institutional knowledge and maintaining that. And I'll pass it back to you, Zep.
Thank you, Nate. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I actually agree 100% with what Mitch said about the experts, but at the same time, I like the idea what Tom said about, like, if we could have weekly, bi-weekly Trent, Saram, and all these people, I think like it would be a great advice, and if that takes to get them, I think it's worth it.
Can I just clarify one thing? Sorry. This is okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was you. It was you.
Okay. Just very quickly, I just want to clarify the startup thing. I don't mean like Silicon Valley startup. Just to be clear, I think that social enterprises are startups too. And so I think there's a mentality around startup. We can't let Silicon Valley pollute our minds about what a startup means. There are plenty of social enterprises that are startups, and they're great entities. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, the thing about having social enterprises is the fact that, or the startup model applied to social enterprises is that it's very focused, and I feel it's a model that comes from the legacy system. It doesn't come from something like this, a commons. I don't think a commons it's different. It has so many other transversal factors into it that the startup model sort of gets short to me. The human aspect, yes, we have the social aspect, the human aspect, the economy building process. All of these things are quite not, sync with the startup idea. But I guess it's more of an intention than actually following the model by default. Sorry.
We're already polluted.
I'd just like to add one thing. There was some conversation about switching away from the paid role model, and I could get behind that. I could probably support that because if we look at praise scores, we could also see a trend that people that are active tend to be noticed more. So that also increases their praise scores. So what we could do is, like, instead of having having such a large budget given out to paid roles for all the working groups, we can have, like, each working group is given a tight budget, and that's specifically for external experts that they're hiring, and a significant share just goes to the reward group and gets distributed to the whole community, proportional to their base. That could be an interesting model to adopt if there's support for it.
I want to say something really fast. First, that I'll jump some minutes before because the Graviton training is starting, and all of you are super invited. But also, I was looking at this graph that I placed in the notes document, where it talks about renewal, birth, maturity, and creative destruction. And it's normal that we are facing this rigidity trap. But I think that we should embrace creative destruction as something beautiful and something that also helps the flow of the organization. So for my side, I am pro these changes, and I think that the steward role could be something that could be rotative, and have even it would be good to have different group taking the flag, and not like we are the flag and we are carrying it all the time. So it's like opening and saying that I'm okay with this discussion of maybe closing some stewardships, opening new stewardships around, or redefining the roles, and even choosing new people. All that is really cool if we can do it in a very comprehensive way.
Thanks, Wonka. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? We have 2 minutes left. Bye, Wonka. I guess I just want to say something about startups too. I don't look at it as a poisoned word. I don't think of it as a negative. I don't think of it as negative at all. We are a group of individuals who have raised funding, who want to achieve a goal, who have constraints, and who have. I think that it's actually a pretty apt analogy, and that's all. I actually think it's a pretty apt analogy. It's just the first time I'm hearing it, but I don't see it as being something that we should necessarily run away from. We have the same constraints as a startup does, and many startups are successful, and we should do the things that are successful. And many startups are failures, and we should avoid the things that they do that are failures. I think because we're a commons doesn't mean that we are above the rules of of profitability. And so I think that there's a lot that we can learn from well-run startups. And we're at the top of the hour, so unless anyone has anything else to say, we technically have 1 minute left. We can end this call. Chewy wants you to check out this bio, please. So take a moment and check out the bio, and then leave a comment if you can in our Stewards channel or in the document itself.
Yes, we have a new draft. Your opinion is very welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Can I just ask briefly what will be the follow-up to this conversation that we had today?
The follow-up should be the working group manifesto change or proposal for change, and funding proposal, or in the manifesto that we will not be asking for funding.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Tam, everyone. See you.
Thanks, Tam.
Thanks, Dan.